here is a fantastic thing. This is a postcard, I guess, from the 1920s. And it shows the horseshoe staircase, famous horseshoe staircase at the front of the chateau. And of course, it's a photograph of Napoleon, which seems a little surprising, because you'd have thought that he was sort of dead before photography came in. But I guess they dressed some local actor up as Napoleon, and then assembled a whole lot of, soldiers or people in Napoleonic uniforms to reenact Napoleon's tremendous, farewell to his imperial guard, which happened there. He abdicated at Fontainebleau in 1814. Having tried to commit suicide, and all sorts of other rather inglorious things. He then very dignified farewell to the troops. But this is a very famous piece of furniture on the right here, made I think by Benneman or somebody, and so this is made in 1787, just before the Revolution. And this was Napoleon's bed in the Tuileries, which is rather fascinating. And this is just a nice bit of light, really, some shutters almost completely closed, and an armchair in shadow. I love that sort of atmosphere. And it is very nice to go to Fontainebleau because there are very few people. This ceiling is just fantastic. And whether it was originally, buff ground and gilded carvings and then a black, border around everything, who knows? But it is rather marvellous. Napoleon III, curtains. That's a rather wonderful fabric, I think. And look at that braid and the fringe and then the marbleized skirting board on the right. I love these things, but you can imagine people do give me very odd looks when I'm sort of grovelling around on the floor with my phone trying to take a picture of this. And then here looking into the chapel, and just the doors looking into the chapel with some L monograms again. Here the most incredible doors. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but that's a door there's a massive carved sort of helmet at the top, and then a face of, is that a mask of Medusa or something, and then another mask below. And they're all, whole, so that, you have to close this door first, and then the other one closes on top of it. But just the depth of the carving, they are insane, these doors. And they are 1630. Isn't that fantastic? Just extraordinary. You can see I enjoyed these doors. And now this is the great gallery built by Francois Premier. Having been a prisoner in Madrid, he obviously decided to celebrate his freedom in a big way. And so he brought Primaticcio and Rosso, these two Italian, an architect and an artist over from, and Primaticcio had worked for Giulio Romano in Mantova, and so he had a lot of Giulio Romano ideas, and look at this. This is all plasterwork, and it's unbelievable. I think it's so fantastic. And the ceiling was raised, and the ceiling was lowered, and just, but actually, I think the plasterwork and the carvings are the original, and the paintings are the original, although they were over-painted several times. But then André Malraux, when he was Minister of Culture in the 50s, managed to get them all the over-painting peeled off. And then here more. And it's so unbelievably inventive. Every single, none of the motifs repeat. There are all these, and these figures are just so absolutely beautifully sculpted and beautifully observed. It is amazing. And it's kind of Mannerist style, I suppose. It's just fantastic. And the combination of the sort of geometric forms, and you see giant Fs for Francois there, and these very, very naturalistic, but a bit Manneristic, a bit elongated figures. I think it's incredible. Louis XV wanted to put doors in to go, more convenient thing. Louis XV always messing things up, like at Versailles, where he took out the ambassador's staircase so that he could have a bath. But here he had Gabriel alter the end of the gallery. And so these are actually door frames done in neoclassical style by Gabriel, which is quite funny, shoved into that sort of Renaissance room. But I love that. And those fantastic colours for a ceiling as well. And then here, this is a famous relief of, oh dear, who is it of? I don't even know. Is it Henri IV, maybe? But this was part of a famous sort of chimney, a famous fireplace. And of course, unfortunately, they ripped out the fireplace, but they kept this relief. Deep buttoned armchairs and silk, and this carpet is incredible. And this is Napoleon III really celebrating being, it's good to be emperor. And he's just got every sort of French royal attribute you can have. And then this was a thing done by Napoleon, a gallery, which was supposed, of course, to celebrate his achievements. And so the entire ceiling was painted with great scenes from his life, presumably not including his suicide attempt at Fontainebleau. I imagine he didn't include that. But of course, the moment that, well, I don't know who it was, but Louis XVIII, or maybe not until Louis Philippe, somebody, anyway, some Bourbon or Orleans king, redid the thing, and obviously the great priority was to paint out all of the Napoleon, self-aggrandizement from the ceiling, and then it was turned into a library. And all of these fabrics, I think they're so fantastic, but they've all been rewoven. But aren't these walls wonderful? And some of the paintings over the doors, you can hardly see them, but painted by Sauvage, same painter who did that dining room for Louis XVI at Compiègne that we saw the other day. And then here are the curtains in there, which I think are just wonderful. And they are, they sort of cross over, and the transparent silk, and white silk underneath, and then green silk on top. But so the left-hand one is white and the right-hand one is green, which gives a fantastic effect, actually. It seems like it would be nuts, but it actually looks really beautiful. This is a terribly bad photograph, you can't really see. And this was Marie Antoinette's bed. And all these things done, in the 1780s. And that's looking up at the ceiling. And I think I can't remember whose M that is. I don't think it's Maria de Medici. It's, I know, it's Marie Leczinska. So that is actually from Louis XV. Okay, so that alcove, the main bit of the ceiling is earlier, and then this, just the alcove where the bed is, the ceiling is redone under Louis XV. So it's sort of Rococo trying to blend in a bit with the kind of 17th century Baroque ceiling in the rest of the room. Now this is the most exquisite room, which is Marie Antoinette's little sort of boudoir, and the walls are gilded, and then is it silver leaf? Is it white? It can't be, because it would tarnish. It must be platinum or white gold or something, and then painted or designed by an architect called Rousseau, the paintwork, and then painted by, I don't know who. But there's a little work table made by Riesener in steel, and mother of pearl. And here, looking up, do you see that vaulted ceiling has got its sort of trompe-l'oeil trellis with little tiny flower arrangements inside each one. And it's so beautiful. I think it's incredible, this room. And here the matching desk to that work table. Again, mother of pearl and steel. And next door is Napoleon's throne room. And this, which I think used to be the Queen's drawing room or something, he turned into a throne room, obviously, and set himself up as properly the new Caesar. And this is the panelling in that throne room, which was done for Louis XIII in 1630-something. And now next door to that is this, which I think was used as the council room, council chamber during the Empire. And there's a detail of the curtains. A fantastic parquet floor. And here a cipher for one of the Louis. And then this is Napoleon's sort of state bed. This is a velvet that was rewoven sort of 20 years ago or something. And isn't it extraordinary? It's the canopy over the bed. Isn't that fantastic? The fireplace next door to that, this looks like it's designed by Gabriel or somebody, doesn't it? This must be sort of 1775 or 1780, and then the rest of the room has been empiered up, as Napoleon's sort of second bedroom, his kind of comfy, small bedroom, where he'd actually sleep, and obviously used also as a study. And so here's another of those Jacob de Malta desks, which we saw at Compiègne. And it was wonderful that he sets himself up actually in this quite small little room to sleep and do his work. Just get on with life and presumably think about committing suicide or try to commit suicide at that desk. Poor man, honestly. And here's the sofa in that room. And again, look at that silk. Isn't that fantastic? And the walls, do you see, are silk, and they've got a sort of a gilt bronze little sort of bead moulding, putting them together a bit like tenting or something. And then around the top is this funny sort of pelmet running around the top in this, draped silk. And then this, I think, his sitting room next to that. And this is, unfortunate, this is known as the Abdication Room. I was looking in the Fontainebleau guidebook, and which I should have looked at more, shouldn't I? Then I could tell you some actual information. But in there it says, on the 19th of whatever month it was, his conditional abdication. And then 2 days later, his unconditional abdication. So he obviously tried to abdicate, saying, well, I'm still going to be king of the world. That's all right, isn't it? And was then told, no, that's not all right. So, and you hear the curtains in there. And what about that sort of tieback? I mean, I don't mean the rope one, I mean the incredible one underneath. Look at that. And that's been newly made, They've made that sort of 5 years ago or something. Extraordinary. This is the state livery of the court chamberlain or something like that. Isn't that beautiful? And they also have one of Napoleon's campaign tents. And how much of this is real, I don't know. Probably the bed frame. You see, there's a steel bed frame. And so that all folds up or comes to pieces, can be assembled. And we carried on a baggage train and put together. But it's rather wonderful, isn't it? With that green silk cover or something, and then leopard skin carpet, of course. And then this sort of Indian printed chintz tent. Beautiful. Perfectly bad photograph, I'm afraid. But and then I found a picture of another of his campaign tents, which is in the Army Museum in Paris, which is well worth a visit if you ever go there, in Les Invalides, upstairs in Les Invalides, and another of these folding steel campaign beds. And there they've got this fantastic, what we'd call a director's chair, but, folding campaign chair. Isn't it beautiful? Look at those arms. And, of course, another leopard skin carpet in the Napoleon Museum at Fontainebleau. And a fantastic wash basin and all sorts. And one of the cradles for the King of Rome, the Napoleon Marie-Louise's son. And this one, I think, was made for Saint-Cloud. And it's missing its sort of drape, however that worked. And then these are the rooms done by Empress Eugénie and Napoleon III in 1865 or something, 1863. And so this was 8 years after they went to stay in Buckingham Palace with Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. And I suppose were probably rather taken with all of the Chinese things that were in their rooms in Buckingham Palace. But it's rather beautiful. It's a little sort of Chinese, Asian museum. Just 2 rooms. But they have these fantastic banquettes covered in sort of Chinese-inspired silk. And, it's all rather beautiful, really. There we go. Quite a lot of Chinese vases, nicely arranged on shelves. And this is just a detail of a Chinese enamel piece, which has been turned into a light fitting, I think.